Welcome, alternates, to day 2 of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Karen Reed retrial. As always, Judge started off today by asking the jurors if they were able to follow her instructions and not do any investigation on their own, which they really, all complied. So let's begin where we left off yesterday with Kerry Roberts. She was led back into the courtroom to take the stand for her second day. Real quick, if you missed yesterday, please go back and listen to day 1 testimony as well as opening statements. They are really not to be missed. Now let's get into it. Prosecutor Hank Brennan didn't finish questioning Miss Roberts yesterday, so he started things off by continuing to go over the findings of John O'Keefe and what happened just before Miss Roberts, Miss McCabe, and Miss Reed got to 34 Fairview Road, where they would eventually find John O'Keefe in the snow. Miss Kerry Roberts would describe how they stopped over at John's house to see if he was there. Once there, Karen noticed her taillight had been broken and then questioned Miss Roberts if she could have hit John. Miss Roberts replies to Karen that there is no way that she hit John. She describes the light as cracked a little and a little square metal piece sticking out, something that could, get caught on your jacket. They then put a photo of this taillight onto the screen so all the jury could see what she was talking about. And maybe Miss Roberts had better eyesight than me in a blizzard, snow, dead of the night, but I couldn't really see the little metal piece that she was talking about. On cross, which I will get to in a minute, you will also see that this encounter has been questioned. They then make it to 34 Fairview Road, and on the way, Miss Roberts notes that Karen is hysterical, frantic, to the point that Miss Roberts has to yell at her to shut up because she's driving in a blizzard. Once there, Karen starts kicking the door and gets out running where John is lying in the snow. Karen immediately runs over to John, lifting his shirt to keep him warm, while Miss Roberts uncovers the snow from his face. Miss Roberts says that John's right eye was huge, like something had happened to it. The left eye was fine. Once EMTs arrived to take over care, the scene was a little chaotic, with Karen running around screaming, which was shown on some dashcam footage given to the jury. This footage is a little hard to make out or even hear, but you do hear Karen kind of say something, in my opinion, which I'm not giving a lot of opinions, but as a juror watching this, I think I overhear Karen saying something like, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" You see people walking around, but like I said, it's a dashcam footage, an inside dashcam footage, and they're in a blizzard, so there's not a lot to see. What you do see, however, is Miss Roberts walking back towards where John was lying, and she picks up blankets. She also testified that when she grabbed those blankets, she also grabbed John's phone that was lying on the grass under John's body. She puts that phone in her pocket where she will later give it to a first responder. From there, they decide to go to the hospital, and on the way, Karen says she is going to kill herself if John is dead. And that is when she is taken back to 34 Fairview Road, where there is an ambulance waiting to take her in for psychiatric evaluation. This was actually called in by Karen's mother. Roberts testifies that she explained to the first responders that Karen's mom doesn't want Karen to have any medication that she has in her bag and that she really does need to be monitored. Miss Roberts then heads back into her car where she picks up the O'Keefes, John's parents, and takes them to the hospital. And that is when they find out the unthinkable, that John has in fact died. Miss Roberts sees John and this time she says he looks like a raccoon, even worse than when he was lying in the snow, which she expected him to look better in the hospital. After about 2 hours of testimony with the prosecution, next up was Alan Jackson, the defense attorney. He starts questioning and cross-examination how often Miss Roberts called and spoke to district attorneys and investigators on this case. Miss Roberts had a handful of conversations with people involved and even testified to the fact that her and Jennifer McCabe have since become very close friends and have even made timelines together. At one point, defense attorney Alan Jackson asked Kerry Roberts about her grand jury testimony ahead of Karen Reed's first trial. At that time, Roberts said Reed asked her, "Do you think I hit him?" after they noticed the taillight of Reed's vehicle was cracked. Jackson then played a video clip from outside O'Keefe's house, showing that Reed and Roberts get out of separate vehicles and no one stops to look at a taillight of Reed's car. Roberts said, actually, we looked at it after, on our way back outside the house, and not on their way inside as she previously thought. It was incorrect, she said. It happened on the way out of the house. Side note, we do not have any video footage of that actually happening.
The answer that you gave was, quote, we pulled into it's a driveway, there's two cars, and then two cars, and then a single, so John's car is there. Karen pulls in, and I pull in behind her. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the back of the car, saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? That was your testimony at the time, correct?
Yes.
In your very first conversation with those two troopers on January 29th, you didn't mention anything about a taillight or a cracked taillight, or
no,
even
I
having
did not.
seen a cracked taillight, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I didn't want to accuse anybody of anything.
Jackson also questioned Roberts about why she didn't tell investigators right away about Reed's initial call to her that morning. She said Reed called first thing and said, "He is dead." She only reported that later, not initially. Her reply was, "Well, I was in shock." He also pressed on that meeting with Jen McCabe to put a timeline together. She responded it was at the request of O'Keefe's mother. Jackson, in quotes, say, "Okay, so both of you were assisting each other's memories, correct? Obviously, that would influence your memory, so what's on that timeline is not completely independent. It's a combination of your memory and Jennifer McCabe's memory." Then the shocker of it all came when Miss Roberts was asked about her recalling whether she ever told investigators that Karen Reed asked Jennifer McCabe to Google hypothermia on that very early morning that John O'Keefe was found outside in the cold. Roberts said that she did not recall ever saying that. But when she testified to the grand jury, Jackson said Roberts did say that she heard Reed ask McCabe that question. She says, "Yep, I testified. I didn't hear it, but I was told she was asked to Google it." Roberts only said that after she was asked to review her grand jury testimony. That's when Jackson says, "You'll agree, for that purpose, you painted a very, very detailed picture in front of a grand jury, didn't you?"
Technically, I was under oath, and I did not hear Karen asked Jen to Google it.
And yet under oath...
But I knew it happened at that time.
And yet under oath you said you did.
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
Objection.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not intentionally.
But you did.
And
Not intentionally.
okay, that's the end of
Understood
this.
the question, Mr. Jackson.
All right. Is there any other question, or was that it?
I didn't hear what she just said.
I said I misunderstood the question, Mr. Jackson.
That's what you're saying now, correct?
That's what happened.
Then on redirect, prosecutor Hank Brennan got up, attempted to show that Kerry Roberts did not intentionally mislead the grand jury about her Google hypothermia statement. He asked, "Did you ever tell the grand jury you actually heard that statement being made?" he asked, and she responds, "I did not." Then on to witness number 3, which prosecution called Peggy O'Keefe, John's mom, which I'm going to withhold all my personal opinions for our Patreon page. Margot and I are going to come together to discuss what we actually think. So head to patreon.com/thealternate to get the inside scoop. But for now, let's just be alternates. Miss O'Keefe takes the stand and prosecution has her paint a picture of her son, his sister's kids, who John cared for, and the loss of her daughter, her son-in-law, and now John, in just a few short years. She was very emotional trying to get through this testimony. She said John was such a good guy. He loved sports. He took care of his niece and nephew. You know, his sister had passed from cancer, and then his brother-in-law passed just 2 months later, leaving these kids, 3 and 8, with no parents. And that's when John took over caring for them. So this testimony was heartbreaking. Defense got up there and did not cross-examine Miss O'Keefe. Instead, they just said they were very sorry for her loss. Next up was Massachusetts State Police Trooper Nicholas Guarino. This testimony was basically going over technical data they used to abstract phone information. They asked about him getting Karen's phone and John's phone and other phones that they collected and how they plugged it into their computer systems and how they, could see if somebody changed something, even as minimal as a period. This stuff was very technical. It wasn't long. He did not testify for very long, and they let him go pretty much right away. They did, however, say that they were probably going to bring him back at a later date for additional testimony. So I think we are going to see this state trooper back on the stand at a future date. Then came Canton firefighter paramedic Daniel Whitley, who was called on duty to assist with Karen Reed and her psychological state. She was taken to the hospital under a Section 12, which is emergency restraint and hospitalization of someone in a psychiatric or emotional distress. He testified that Karen kept asking if her husband was dead or could be dead, and then tried to also refuse medical staff or treatment. Real quick, just in case you don't know, John is not Karen's husband, it's just her boyfriend. He then also said Karen refused to give a urine sample at the hospital. He also testified that they didn't feel comfortable leaving Karen at the hospital with just nursing staff because there was no security on hand at the hospital that night. He was asked about a comment Reed made on transport about Miss Roberts. Whitley recounted that Reed asked if he knew Kerry Roberts. Upon confirming that he did know Carrie, Reed allegedly rolled her eyes and then put her head back down into her hands, which he thought was strange. Upon cross-examination, defense attorney David Yannetti questioned Whitley about his previous description of Reed's demeanor as snarky, pointing out that this characterization was not mentioned in his initial statement to investigators. On cross, Yannetti had Mr. Whitley acknowledge that he told investigators a few weeks after Karen's death that he thought Reed as being snarky. Yannetti also sought to establish that Whitley knew a lot of people involved in this case, especially Miss Kerry Roberts, as they live in the same neighborhood. They've also been at the same neighborhood block parties together, and Whitley even helped Carrie bringing a fire truck out for the kids on one of these parties. Additionally, Whitley acknowledged attending school with former Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator on this case. What they also tried to establish was that Canton's a small town, so you have to think everyone kind of knows everyone. He was then asked if he knew Reed, which he replied, no. At this point, Yannetti had a sidebar with the judge, and that's when she decided that enough was enough for the day, while telling the attorneys tomorrow they needed to speed things up a little bit. Alternates, we must come back tomorrow where we will pick right up where we left off with the rest of Mr. Whitley's testimony. This is the alternate. inside America's biggest trials, and I am your co-host, Tabitha. One last thing, we are going to be streaming the entire trial on YouTube, so find us there at Alternate Pod. Note that there is no "the" in the title on YouTube. Also, before I forget, follow us on all of our social media platforms at The Alternate Pod. See you all tomorrow.